I haven't practiced my English for a while, but I want to say thank you to SPB front-end organizers for organizing the first English-speaking meetup in St. Petersburg. So, well, we did it first with a conference, but for meetup, it's a big step. So yeah, I'm here today to talk about semantics. For not just semantics, as you might have heard I'm talking about in my talks, on videos, on podcasts, but specifically for cynics, for most of you, I believe, for people that don't care about semantics. And the idea of this talk is that you have a right to not care about it. So I work for HTML Academy. Basically, I'm a teacher in many ways, and you might have seen me, you might have heard me on podcast with those fellows, and Masha as well. You might have seen me on YouTube. Subscribe and hit that bell button right now. And yeah, so let's start with some graphics. Do you know what it is? Have you seen it anywhere? It's something from military, right? Like chevron, or how they call it. No, this is not from military. I'm a hippie, so why would I put something from military on my slides? This is official logo of Semantics. Really? So remember this HTML5 redesign back in 2010, around that time? Like new HTML5 logo and a shield and yeah, this thing. So they published not only HTML5 logo, but logo types for every technology, like semantics, networking, some caching offline, like nonsense like that. And among them, this nice, beautiful logo. So print T-shirt with it. It's available online as in SVG. So this is the real technology. This is the real idea we don't use every day, most of us. And this is very sad. But I decided to. I asked if I have like 20 or 30 minutes, but I decided to finish right here. Semantics is like monads. Who's here know what functional programming is? Okay, that's a good beginning. Who knows what monads is? Okay, explain it to me in 5 words, or like in 5 seconds, or something like this. Who's ready to explain what they are, what it is? Yes, you might say it like that. Yeah, so basically, this is it. Semantics is like monads. Thank you. Seriously, it's a concept everyone knows about, like heard about, but there's no way to explain it in a few words. It's something complicated, and yeah, you'd rather forget about it the moment you heard about it. So, but no, this is not it. In 2010, I gave a talk called what was the name? Semantic Coding with Meaning. You hear? Like I've been showing developers the new hope over the horizon. Like HTML5 is a new hope. Finally, we have new HTML tags for all our needs, like articles, sections, headers, footers. Instead of div class header, we can use header. We can use some HTML forms, beautiful HTML forms, like input elements for HTML forms, like input type date, calendar, and things like that. So it was a new hope for us. But basically, everything we use these days is like HTML forms, really. Like input type email is from HTML5, and we use it most of us. Who use HTML like type email, type date, and yeah. This is it, pretty much it. So we, on almost every page I explore, sometimes I go in a view source like an idiot, because like when you're exploring sites, you're not supposed to go to source code. But anyway, I'm a developer. So on almost every page I see text from HTML5, misused most of them. Used without any idea how to use them. So basically, HTML5 failed us, or we failed HTML5. I don't know what happened really. But back in 2008, this is archaeology, seriously. I used to have a blog, and it was 10 years ago. I wrote an article about semantic coding in 2 parts. 2 parts, huge articles. You can read it and laugh. But still, there are 2 articles, Semantic Coding Part 1, Semantic Coding Part 2, and there was a really, really nice article, reply to it. All of them are Russian-speaking articles. Semantics, Schmemantics, by Dmitry Nyaglov, known as Ouch. He's a really smart fella, so read his reply. So I used to believe in this idea, but as I told you just now, it failed us, or we failed it. So, but still, we have HTML5, we have new HTML, we write HTML every day, and we have a lot of questions left since then. For example, like very important questions. For example, B or strong? Who's here for B? Cool. And who's for strong? Yeah, it's semantics, you know? Strong is much more cooler, but why? Who knows why? Why strong is better than B?
Better because it highlights the important part of
But what's okay?
without saying it bold.
Yeah, it highlights. Yeah, it's supposed to be better than B, right? In some way at least. Yeah, that's why it's important, right? That's cool. Section or article? Who's here for section? Wonderful. Who prefers articles? Article tag. Wonderful. Yeah, we have some people here like that. Div, yeah, whatever. Div or span? This is for you. Div is better, right? But why? Why? Why div is better than span? Why B better than strong or vice versa? Why section is better than article? We have no idea, seriously. And my favorite one, I for icons, right? Yay! Now, who use I for icons? I hate you so much. But that's just me. It doesn't matter, seriously. And here you are, using I for icons. Very cynical. There is a Bible called HTML5. And it's wrong to use I for icons, according to this Bible. And it's wrong to misuse sections or articles. It's wrong to misuse headings and whatever, everything that we're doing every day. And it's wrong. You're like sinners, you know? You're going to hell or what? Or you're just doing your work, you're doing your job. So I have an answer for you. It doesn't matter. Like everything I asked you, it doesn't matter completely. Like it makes no sense at all. You have a right to decide what's better for you. Well, it matters if you care, but you don't have to. I care. It matters for me. I know the answer for every question I ask you. But you don't have to. But what matters, really matters? UX. This is the only thing that matters. What we're doing here, we're taking code, put it in a browser for users to get some information from the web. This is it. We're building UX. And if it's good for UX, it's good. It's right to do. If it's bad for UX, or if it doesn't matter, if it gives no impact, it doesn't matter. So be cynical, be practical. That's what I'm asking you. And there are 2 parts in semantics. There are 2 important parts. You know this book, JavaScript Good Parts, like very thin one? The same applies to HTML. There are 2 good parts in HTML. There are 2 areas where you can apply semantics, where it makes sense, where it serves some purpose. So content, for example. What is content? Like everything on a page is a content, right? No, not really. For example, I gave this talk for the first time on Kharkiv.js site. I thought it would be a funny thing to say how terrible their site is on their own conference. And then I thought, yeah, I'll change this site for some other, on next occasions where I give my talk. But this site is so terrible, I decided to keep it here as an example. So it looks kind of nice, you know, like big photos, every information you want to know is here. It's a huge landing full of useful information. But there are so many problems on this site that it makes a perfect example. For example, what we can find on this site? There are 497 divs. I have a question for you. Is it good or bad? Who is for good? It's okay, like 500 divs. Yeah, it's fine. Who thinks it's too much? Yeah, way too much. 500. Whatever, seriously. If it's less than 16 millions, it's okay, because I think it's a limit. Seriously, you can use any number of divs if it's okay with browser performance. Any number. There are 0 IMG tags with alt attribute of 53 images included in this page. Is it okay or not? Okay. Totally fine. Okay, I remember you. Now it's not. Oh damn! It's like it makes it harder for search engines. It makes it harder for screen reader users to consume information, consume content on this page. So there's no description for image. If it's not loaded, you have nothing. If you don't see interface using screen reader, it's nothing. It's empty. It's just the image. I'll show you an example how it sounds if there's no alt. There are 7 links that are empty. Is it okay or not? Totally fine. Who's with me? It's a trap. Right. It's not good. Because when link is empty, it goes somewhere, but where? You're not explaining where it goes. There's URL, but to explain it to a human, you have to read the full URL out loud. You'll see an example later. There are 0 H tags, I mean headings, like H1, 2, 5, 6. You know the answer. Like, it's a pure evil, seriously. So if you want to choose the worst, yeah, it's number 4th. Don't do this. Always mark some headings on your sites. That's the rule I apply to every site I build. And we are, just like I told you before, it's totally fine to use 16 millions of divs because we are developers. And I suggest you to try this approach. Build everything using any element you want, basically. Mostly divs, seriously. Like divs, everything in divs. But then apply some semantic tags to elements that really matter. Headings, landmarks, I'll show you later what they are. Landmarks, forms, and everything. So you can use a div tag that doesn't matter, that makes no sense at all on its own for everything. But then you can apply meaningful elements to important parts of your site. Try this approach, seriously. We are developers and it's totally fine. And as an example of empty links, there's an interface you can see. There is a pop-up and VoiceOver. It's an application built into macOS and iOS, but there are screen readers on Windows and other platforms. And it reads aloud web pages. And when there's no alt for an image, it reads a URL of a picture. So when it finds my picture on Kharkiv.js site, it reads aloud Makeev.jpg image. And it's totally fine because they used my last name to name the file. But look at this. So this is an example of empty link. Do you have an idea where it goes? Like wild guess. No, it's a YouTube page. When you don't have enough subscribers, they give you a random URL, unless you have like 100 subscribers and a number of views. So if you hear something like UCYCPT7S-WMZ-A4T8JWKQK0A, yeah, so you have superpowers and something like this, or God mode, I don't know. But no, it just goes to YouTube. So VoiceOver will read this out loud, just like I did now, if link is empty. So you have to supply some content to explain where it goes. And for contents, there are some rules that are really important to apply. For example, always specify language of your document. Because I see, like on every second site, I see English on Russian sites, because they use templates that are built into their IDE or editor. So make sure you have proper language, or at least none. I mean, not the wrong one. It's better to, it's not hard to specify it, so please use the lang. It helps, even Google Translate, it helps Google Translate to translate the content of your page. So you can specify not only on a root element, but on nested elements. So you can have Russian with English nested and with some French nested into it, so it's really a useful attribute. And also helps to it also helps screen readers to understand and read aloud your page better. Headings are super important, so I'll show you some examples later. Images. If you have an image as an SVG element embedded into your HTML, just give it role image and ARIA label with some text in it, and it will be basically identical to IMG with alt attribute. So there is a way to use SVG in the same manner. Use figures, fake captions to mark images or charts or tables as figures. I'll show you some examples later. Use lists for content and blah, blah, blah. So there are many useful content-related HTML elements listed in the HTML5 spec that actually make sense. So use them wisely. But for content, it's easy. Like we use lists for lists, right? It's easy. But for interface, it's a bit trickier. So before going to interfaces, I'll show you some examples of elements that make sense and how they make sense. For example, this is the list of headings on Kharkiv.js site. It's really hard to navigate. Actually, I made it up, because when there are no headings, this interface is invisible. So there's no way to list headings because there are no headings on the page. But it might look like that. I just opened the web inspector and I added some headings instead of divs. And you can see you can navigate the whole site by just this menu. And this menu is visual, but actually it's just a helper. The main information is conveyed by voice. So it reads like headings, Kharkiv.js, and you can press arrows to navigate this list. So you can go not just line by line through the whole site, because this page is huge. You can just navigate between titles and go to the footer right away, because you need some link in the footer. So it's very useful for screen reader users, and also search engines. But that's a completely different topic. And this is another example of a site. It's actually well made. It's a Ukrainian conference Odessa.js this year, and they have a different problem. They have a lot of headings, like 122. Imagine you have a page with 122 stops. Seriously. It's really hard to navigate. So like 0 and 500, there are too much. There's something in between, like 10 or maybe 12 per page. That's the reasonable number of headings. So not everything is heading. Only useful information that helps is heading. And not the ones that look bold and big, you know? It's not about design, headings. It's about usability of your interface. So this is another extreme that you should avoid. And you'll see some screenshots from video from WWDC conference Apple presented this summer. So this is when you use input type email, for example, with area label email address. If you use the right type and some label for it, you can use just label element, but this is example with area label. There is a way for you to get some notification on your watch, on your wrist, and press the links and see some web page. And if it's just input type text, it will show you nothing because there's no keyboard here. But if it's input type email, you have a list of your contacts. You can just press once and you fill your email here. So you can authorize using your watch. This is crazy. For that, it's better to use just a label tag, but you can also use area label to show what it is. You can see interface. It's really useful. Well, without input type email, it will be impossible to enter something like this. Or the same applies to telephone, date, and select. There's no way to input something on a watch. There is a way to select it. The same applies to reader mode. There is a reader mode on a watch because it's the only way you can actually read something on a screen tiny as this. So if you mark your text with proper tags, you'll see proper reader mode. You can also use a schema.org for marking some parts of your article. So you'll see some splash screen for your article with some information about it before reading it. So it's very, very useful. The same applies to figure, IMG, fig caption. So there are built-in styles that they apply if they see certain tags. So use them. IMG, figure, fig caption. I'm using div with background image. Whatever. They will not show it at all because there are no styles on your page. Div without styles with background is like 0 by 0. Well, 100% by 0. So there's no way to show it on Apple Watch, for example. So use IMG. Block quotes, strongs, EMs, whatever. Back to interface. Just like I said, interface is a tricky one. Because semantics for text is easy. Headings, yeah, whatever. But for interface, for example, there are some elements that actually make sense. They make difference. Landmarks, or how I call it in Russian, ориентиры. Landmarks, header, main, aside, footer, those are logical parts of your interface. They are not content. Well, you usually put content in main according to HTML5 spec, and you should do so because it really helps for screen readers and also reader modes in Safari to figure out where your content is. So they look for main element when they're looking for content. The same applies to headings. They also make sense in interfaces, not just in content. Form elements, yeah, you know that. Also interactive elements, but it's a completely different topic. And the same as for empty links. Usually in content you have a text like Twitter, for example, and link around it. But in an interface, you usually have an icon, like round icon with Twitter and everything. So if you want screen readers not just read aloud the whole URL, specify some area label, Twitter, for example, or just put some content inside of it. And it will be totally fine. So if you don't want to mess around with some content and hiding it inside of your icon, just use area label. It will add some meaning to your links, for example. And yeah, it's for keyboard and screen reader users. It's very useful for them to have proper semantic elements in your interfaces. Again, back to Kharkiv.js site. Number of landmarks on this site is 0. And this dialog don't even exist. But if you put something, put some information in it. If you put some logical text in their markup, you'll see banner, navigation, main, complementary, and content info. To make it easier for you, banner is header, navigation is nav element in HTML, main is main, complementary is aside element, and content info is just footer. This is it. So you can navigate between header and footer by just opening menu and going to the needed part of your site. Using keyboard, using screen readers, without looking at interface at all, just by hearing it. Hearing this menu, you can just go through it, listening and analyzing where you want to go. It's so convenient. You should try it, seriously. But there's another question. Yeah, text interfaces. Yeah, there are sites, but there are apps. It's a completely different beast. And more often we actually code web applications using web technologies. So it's a different thing. Let's go through the history of interfaces of the web. For example, this is the typical site of 90s. This is basically a Word document, seriously. Title, paragraph, another title, subtitle probably, and another paragraph. I'm not going to ask how to mark it up, seriously. But should I? Seriously, H1, P, H2, another P, simple, easy peasy, how they say. Yeah, H1, H2, seriously, it's a document. That's what semantics is for, right? Not really. It's bigger than that. Website of like 2000s, for example, or still contemporary website. This puts our content, our Word document, inside of this frame on the right side, and it gives us the same idea. So H1P, H2P applies to content. Everything is just whatever, seriously. It's an interface. There's no need for semantics for interface. Not really. You can make interface better, just like I showed you before, using nav for this one, for example, because it's a navigation, or it's a header of your site, for example. But you can nest navigation inside of it. You can use the aside element to show that it's not a main content. It's additional content. It's something secondary to the main content. And you can use footer for whatever people gather in the footer, like some links. They're dumping search and number of links and contacts and phones and emails, whatever. So you can mark your interface. Okay, this is also not that complicated compared to what I'm going to show you next. So header, nav, main, aside, footer, do this. If you're not doing these simple steps while marking up your interface, you're doing it wrong. Seriously, those tags makes sense. They make difference. But yeah, there are some other tags. There are some other interfaces. I recreated this Telegram interface in Sketch using some bubbles. And this is a tricky one, seriously. Like, where is the header? Where is the nav? Not really. Not really. Because it's not about design, just like I showed you before. If you don't see your big, bold thing, it's not a heading. It's heading when it's useful as a heading. And here, it's complicated. But there is a way to solve this problem. For example, just for example, I decided to put header right here. So this is header. I'll show you like this. So this is header. And very bottom of a page, because it contains information that is not that important on every page. It's similar. It stays the same on every page, but it's not the main information you wanna use. So the main information probably this one, right? You're going to chat to someone, and this is the main part of an application. But what's this? It's probably navigation, right? You're navigating your main information on the right side here, for example. On the left side, what's the thing you're using the most to navigate your Telegram application? Contact list, seriously. This is your navigation. So you can put nav tag here, and you can put some heading on top of it. You can put another subheadings for every contact, for example, next to the picture of this contact. So it will be big navigation. So when I'm trying to find the place without looking at interface, or when I don't have an ability to look at an interface, for example, when I'm trying to find my way inside of this application, I'll have a chance at least to find some logical parts in it. So try to help your users, for example. And there are many other tricks you can use. For example, yeah, it's a chat list with navigation, and every link goes to H2 says that it's a navigation. It's a list of chats. Every link goes to a chat, to some chat with some subheading showing that, yeah, what's in there. And for example, you can mark up your main content as different main elements. It's allowed, according to HTML5 spec, to have multiple main elements on a page when only one of them is visible. Not just visible, but there. Because display none, for example, or attribute hidden, it's another HTML5 attribute nobody knows about. It's basically display none. In browser styles, it's display none. So if all mains but one are hidden, it's totally fine to have multiple mains. So by pressing a link inside of a navigation element, you activate some main element of this interface. And in this landmark menu, you'll have just a single main, because all others are hidden by hidden attribute. So this is, I'm just guessing, you know? There's no right way to mark applications, I think, in 2018, because we still haven't figured it out. But you know parts of it. You know useful parts of HTML. You can try. You can at least try to put some headings in your interface, or landmarks, as I showed you. So what to do next? Don't be scared, probably, because I gave you a lot of information right now, and you have a lot of things to process. But now you know that HTML, it's not just some outdated nonsense. It's a huge book of technologies that some of them are outdated, some of them will be implemented next year, but some of them make sense right now, and you can make UX of your websites better by applying some rules. So semantics is easy, seriously. It's easy. It's not that complicated as it looks, if you know why. Because if you have the whole Bible in front of you, it's way too complicated. I'll just use div and whatever tag I like. But if you know why, you'll use just the useful elements. Now you know. So just go and make your interfaces better. Don't applaud yet. There is one thing that I haven't told you about. And I don't want to lie to you. To make the proper, accessible interface, you have to read another Bible. And it's huge, and it's complicated, and it's just, seriously, it's a complicated thing. And it's more than just marking up your interface with proper HTML tags and calling it a day. No, it's more than that. You have to provide special attributes. You have to provide some connections between drop-downs and buttons and describe all of them. So it's really complicated thing. People charge huge amounts of money for consulting about accessibility. So if you're looking for a job that will make you a lot of money, you can go to and you can learn accessibility. Seriously, it's a big thing these days. So ARIA is another beast to deal with. But if you start with HTML tags, you'll make difference tomorrow. If you wanna learn more, go deeper into ARIA or DARIA. And I have some links for you to further explore this. Whoa, I pressed the wrong button. And the most important one is inclusive components. It's a book by Hayden Pickering. This is a British gentleman with terrible sense of humor. Very British one, but I just adore him. Seriously, he's very good at what he's doing. He's just launched a video channel, just like I did, and he published a video like probably yesterday. So please subscribe to him. And I think I published it yesterday on Web Standards News with some smiles and. You'll find it. So this is a very good site with some recipes, how to make accessible components, including some React snippets of codes and things like that. So please go read it. And read other articles and sites as well. So I have some further steps for you. And you can find this presentation in English by going to this URL. If you remove EN, you'll find the same presentation in Russian, as you might have guessed. And this is it.
Okay.
Thank you for a very interesting talk. I have probably 100 questions for you, but I think our moderator will not let me do that. So I'll ask you a couple. First, I guess, many people use frameworks now, like Material UI, for example.
Right.
And then you trust the folks at Google or whoever works on that to put all those area labels, unless you have a good way to check. What's your take on that? Is there a resource where I can check if framework already takes care of accessibility, or if I will need some kind of tool? And if I need a tool, would you recommend? Anyways, if you have a tool that checks that stuff, would you recommend the best one?
There's a big problem with accessibility. There's no way to automate it. There's no way to automate. I mean, do you like this? I don't know, audience. Yeah and no, and like that, pluses and minuses. Yeah, it's okay probably. So they can say the same thing. So they can check, for example, if there's an error in this audience, so we're not suffocate. Yeah, check one. If there's a light, so we can see each other. Yeah, check two. And the same with automated accessibility testing. They can check basic things that are fine with survival and that are necessary. But if it's comfortable, if it's easy to use, there's no way to test it. There are some, like for example, in Chrome, you can easily test many things using audits, and there is an accessibility checkbox. So you can basically check some problematic things, but not all of them. So if you have like 100% on accessibility, it means nothing. But it will, at least it will help you to catch some bugs. There are some extensions available as well. I think I have it installed here, but I'm not sure. No, yeah, this one called Site Improve Accessibility Checker. Site Improve Accessibility Checker. So go check this out. It gives extended accessibility report. So it might help you to test your interfaces as well. But there's no silver bullet, unfortunately.
Also, you may install software for
screen reader. Yeah. If you have macOS or iOS, you have VoiceOver. If you have Windows, you have Windows Narrator, but it's ugly. And I mean, all screen readers are ugly in a way, because you're not looking at it, you're listening to it. So there are different. But on Windows, you can install NVDA. It's free, or JAWS. Well. I think I gave you a link to some videos. No. Just look at AliCast on YouTube. AliCasts. Yeah, something like this, on YouTube. And there's a number of videos, like 20, by Rob Dodson from Google, giving beautiful examples how to use screen readers, what are tools available, etc. Yep.
Quick follow-up question. For on Safari, the screen reader mode, reader mode.
Reader mode.
Yeah. Did you ever like stop reading a website if they didn't have a good support for reader mode? Because I feel I like reader mode, and I feel what it does, it lets me see the important stuff and no ads or stuff like that. No stuff I don't care about. And for the website owner, it's probably not such a great thing. They may be, if they see how the website looks in reader mode, they may be thinking, okay, now I lost all my monetization stuff.
Yeah, well, if I have ad blocker, sometimes I cannot use website because they are just blocking, they're detecting my ad block, for example. The same applies to reader mode. If you're website owner, I think you should try it. You should test your interface, because reader modes are available in Safari, in Edge. I think in Firefox it's somewhere deep, but it's not on the surface. But in Edge, in Safari, built-in Windows and macOS browsers, it's available just next to the URL bar. So user will click there. So make sure your interfaces are properly coded. But this is related to content part of the stuff.
Do you feel a website owner will lose a customer if they don't support it?
Well, it depends on the site. Seriously, if it's a catalog of, I don't know, washing machines or something like this, it doesn't make sense to support reader mode. If there's a content, like if it's an instruction to this washing machine or just an article about it, yeah, it's better to have it. So I think it's not that important as SEO optimization, for example, these days, but it's getting more important. So I would definitely invest if there is any content on your site that looks like an article.
Any question, maybe? No?
Let's go home.
Do you know the percentage of blind people in the world? Really a cynic question.
Yeah, I know. So for that, I'm redirecting you to a site called Webblind. So basically, it's webblind.ru. There are 880,000 blind people in Russia, for example. Yeah, so that's a lot. So I would also recommend going through this basically single-page site with nice navigation and read some documentation on how to make your interfaces accessible. But this is focused mostly on blind users, but it's not just blind users. If your, I don't know, left hand is broken, you're basically doomed to use keyboard. So if your mouse is broken, you have to use keyboard. So make sure you test your interfaces for keyboard accessibility as well. This is it for me. This Webblind. Let me show you it larger. Yeah, something like this. Webblind. Weblind.ru, basically.
Okay, let's thank Vadim.
Thank me.